After being stuck at my same weight for months, I finally decided I needed to do something to break through this weight loss plateau. So I decided to do a 30-day experiment with the carnivore diet. After losing almost 6 pounds during week 1, I wanted to give you a week 2 update to let you know how things were going. Am I still losing weight? And am I finally able to declare an end to this weight loss plateau? All of that is coming up next. What's up everybody, Steve here, coming to you today from my gym out in the garage. It's a little hot and sticky out here today, and this update's gonna be pretty quick because of that, because if you've ever had that bead of sweat just kind of form perfectly in your back and run right down the crack, yeah, you get it. It's a little warm and sticky out, so I'm gonna make this quick. But one quick note, if you haven't watched any of the other couple of videos that I've been doing in this series, I would encourage you to check those out before you watch this video. I'm gonna put a link down below in the description. You can also click right here and that'll take you right to it. So last week I talked about my experience so far, my pros, my cons, the fact that I'd lost almost 6 pounds in a week, and that was a big deal. And the reason for that is because I'd been stuck at the same weight for months. This week's update is pretty straightforward. While some of the pros and cons are the same, I have had a few new revelations. I've also gotten some great help from some of the comments that you've made on the few other videos in this series. I read every one of them, and I'm so grateful for those of you that take the time to share your experience, share recipes, share meal plans, or just comment anything at all. I love it. I really appreciate you doing that. The other thing I'd really appreciate if you would go and smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. No, seriously. Go smash it. Okay, so far week 2 has been a little bit easier than week 1 was. Cravings have dropped off a bit, and I feel like whatever a customization period that I was in during that week 1 has finally passed. I'm still continuing to keep my total carbs down to as close to 0 as possible. Most days this is pretty simple with the limitations on what I'm eating in the meat, eggs, and fish. But a few days I have had a little indulgence, and by a little indulgence I mean like taking a teaspoon of sugar-free steak sauce just to add a little bit more flavor to my meals. But literally, other than that small amount of something, my carbs have been pretty much 0. So I want to give you another real quick high-level recap of the pros and cons. Pro number 1, still no stomach issues. Meal number 2, meal planning, at least for me, incredibly straightforward. And as a side note, again, another quick thank you to those of you who have dropped recipe ideas. You've given me a lot to think about in my upcoming weeks as I'm continuing to follow this experiment. Now, in case you think I'm joking about my meal planning being stupid simple, let me give you a clip of me preparing an entire week's worth of meals from this last weekend. So yeah, this is carnivore life, y'all. There are worse ways to eat. And just for the record, no, I'm not eating all that. My family does eat some of it too. Number 3 pro is inflammation is still super low. So likewise, the cons are pretty similar as well. Con number 1, while I'm still feeling a little bored with some of the limitations of my meals, I am getting a little bit of encouragement from some of the ideas and stuff that you guys have given me. So while it is a con right now, I'm actually looking forward to the upcoming week or 2. And the other big con is that my workouts are still being impacted. Now, I do want to be quick to point out that I don't think it's gotten any worse since week 1. I think week 2 was relatively even keeled, but I will say I just don't feel the same amount of energy that I did while I was on even the keto diet. As I mentioned before, I'm sure it's because I'm getting almost no carbs, but I'm interested to see what's going to happen as I go into week 3. Now, if you want a little bit more information about these pros and cons, I would encourage you to watch the week 1 video where I do give a lot more detail about these pros and cons individually. And now I want to talk about a few specific things about week 2. First off, I've hardly been hungry at all. Now, I do want to note that I've been doing intermittent fasting since I started keto almost 2 years ago. And while doing that on the ketogenic diet, there were times where I would often feel hungry after, at the 18 or 20 hour mark. But so far, hitting the 18 to 20 hour mark here, I'm still just not that hungry. And I also want to point out that every single day throughout the week, I'm doing a really hard, high intensity interval training style workout. It lasts me probably anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour. And the fact that I'm doing that, after fasting from about 6 p.m. the previous day, doing my workout somewhere in between, 7 and 8, getting that done, I'm still not hungry even for several hours after that. I've been going up until probably around 1 or 2 o'clock before I eat. And so it's just been really weird to go all that amount of time, including a workout, and still not be that hungry. Now, I do want to say when I do eat, I try to eat a lot of calories so that I try not to have a negative impact on my metabolism. But I just don't get those deep hunger pangs that I used to experience while on any other form of diet, including the ketogenic diet. Just a very slight feeling that I'm hungry, and that's about it. Sorry, one quick note about what I just said about the ketogenic diet. While I have felt the hunger pangs on the ketogenic diet, it has been by far better than any other way of eating that I've ever experienced. So in most cases, you're eating enough fat to keep you satiated throughout the day. Rarely have I felt that, but again, it's just been so much more extreme on the carnivore diet that I figured I'd make a point of it. Now, secondly, I do want to point out also that I'm very purposeful about taking electrolytes, and I should have mentioned that in the last video. I take a 0 calories, 0 carbs, 0 sugar powder. I drink that pretty much every single day after one of my workouts. I know it's helping me to replenish everything that I'm losing during my workout, and as well as has a few vitamins and minerals that I may not be getting with just this very strict way of eating. And I think because of that, I haven't experienced any cramps or any leg cramps or anything else like that whatsoever. So if you are going to consider this, I'd recommend that you do make sure you're getting your electrolytes in at least some way. Thirdly, I have found that it is so much easier to keep going on the carnivore diet throughout the week than it is on the weekend. You know, on the weekends, I'm resting, I'm recovering. Overall, I'm not being very active. And due to that, I tend to feel like the cravings go up a little bit more on the weekends. Plus, you know, you're having movie nights with your family and things like that. You're bringing out other foods that you may not be eating normally throughout the week. Those also add a little bit more to the temptation. However, during the week, you know, especially after my weigh-ins, oftentimes I try to weigh in first thing Monday morning or at least late on Sunday. I'm really extremely motivated to keep going, and it really makes the week a whole lot easier to stay strict with it. I just wanted to bring it up because I know a lot of you out there have seen comments across different forums and boards and so forth that the weekends are so hard sometimes to stay on a diet. This one doesn't seem to be any different. Okay, so now that we've covered all that, let me get to my weight loss update. So week 1, I lost a total of 5.8 pounds, almost 6 pounds, which was a really big deal because you got to keep in mind, I had been stuck at the same weight for months prior to that. But if you recall, I wasn't quite ready to declare an end to that weight loss plateau. And if you want to know why, I'd encourage you to again watch that week 1 video. But drumroll please, for week 2, I've lost an additional 3.2 pounds, which is a total of about 9 pounds over the last 2 weeks. You know, to say that I'm excited is an understatement, and I can tell you that after, 9 pounds in 2 weeks, I think I'm finally pretty comfortable to say that I'm declaring an end to my weight loss plateau. I will say though, I think there are a few things I could have done differently during week 2. And one of them is to be a lot more conscious of my meal size. I haven't been counting calories, weighing anything at all, and so the fact that I've been losing, especially in these large chunks, is pretty stinking incredible. But I also know that I had some pretty seriously large meals during that week too. So as I start week 3, I'm definitely going to be more conscious of what I'm putting on my plate. Now, I want to point out this is not because I'm in some way unhappy with the amount of weight that I'm losing, or that I'm trying to cut down on the amount of food that I'm putting on my plate so that I can lose more and lose it faster. That is not my reasoning at all. The biggest reason for me is that I don't want to get in the habit of eating these really, really large meals so that when I go back to eating another way of eating, which is typically more than likely going to be keto, that I don't have this mindset of having these huge meals again. I just don't want to get myself into that mindset. But having said that, I am pretty curious to know what kind of results I can get by having just some normal meal sizes. But no matter what, I've been so happy with the results that I've gotten so far, and I'm really excited to see where the rest of this experiment takes me. Now, I said this in the last video, and I want to reiterate it again. Please, do not let your health and well-being be tied to a number on a scale. I'm doing this simply because I'm just not where I want to be, and I'm looking at carnivore as using it as a tool to get a little bit closer to where I do want to be, and that's it. I also want to add, if you are enjoying this video or any of my other content, I would encourage you to please head over to my channel and consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, please click the little bell icon to turn on notifications so that you get notified anytime I do put out a new video. That'll also help keep you up to date as I'm doing this series. And as I said before, please consider smashing that like button. You might be wondering what the big deal is, but for a channel the size of mine, which is really small, it really does help the YouTube algorithm to push the content out to other people and other audiences that may not see this video if they're not searching for it. As I mentioned before, I can feel the sweat forming at the center of my back, so I'm going to call it good. Say thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.